Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. It's Tuesday, November 26th. Thanks for being with us. I'm Madelyn Burke, alongside the Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. Phone number here, 201-939-4513, or find us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. And as a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and on giants.com/podcast. Before we get started, shameless plug, another addition to the podcast platform or podcast network. We got a new episode of Her Playbook up with Selena Samuela of Peloton. Check it out.
Nice.
Shaun,
okay, is that a hit ride? Like, what is she? What kind of ride does she do? What kind of music is she?
She actually does running, like the
on the Peloton treadmill.
She does strength training, so weights,
Nice.
and she recently got into golf over the last few years. And she's somebody who gets so into things. She designed a Peloton course to strengthen your muscles to help optimize your golf swing.
Wow, sign me up. I'm in.
Exactly.
I'm a
It's
big
all
fan.
about torque, rotation.
And it's all about the hips, right? Chubbs says.
It is all in the hips.
All in the hips.
All in the hips.
Chubbs was genius. He was ahead of his time.
He really was.
But
Rest
that's
in peace,
awesome.
Chubbs.
Yeah, I'm a big Alex Toussaint guy. I kind of like his playlist. I like his genre of music. Kind of goes with the, it's always good to get a little beat.
Gotta get
a
in
little
there.
beat.
It was cute because when Selena was in the building doing the record, we were walking, I was giving her a tour, and Joe Shane was walking down the stairs, and I was like, oh, come meet our general manager. And I was like, Joe, this is Selena Samuela. He's like, I know who she is, because he's a big Peloton or big cardio guy too. And so that was cool to see them have that thing. And you got to be hitting the Peloton this week, especially because, Shaun, have you been brining your turducken?
Yeah, the turducken is officially stuffed. You gotta make sure you rotate it properly. Mm-hmm. You gotta have it in the brining bag, keep it moist. Nobody likes a dried out turkey. That is the kiss of death on Thanksgiving. You have visions of Clark Griswold, Christmas Vacation. You go to cut the turkey and it just pops open. Nobody wants an overcooked turkey.
Yeah.
You don't want to underdo it either. So
That's true.
It's kind of a big part of Thanksgiving. You got to do it right, but you got to earn it. I like earning it. You earn the stuffing. You earn that second plate. You earn the sweet potato pie leading up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because we all know we're going to have the meat sweats and we're going to be like dozing off through watching football.
Especially by the time the Giants hit the field at 4:30. That is peak meat sweat hour.
Oh, yeah. That's meat sweat hour. And it's also like, all right, did we already eat once? And am I going back for like the turkey sandwich? The bottles of vino have already been popped. So you're definitely jumping on some of that. But yeah, the turducken, what a great tradition. John Madden, let's just give a little love for him. Changed the game in so many ways, but he changed Thanksgiving. Like, he invented a new Thanksgiving recipe.
I don't even know how to physically get a chicken inside of a duck inside of a turkey. But you know what?
You got to get creative.
Challenges are important for people in life. You got to challenge yourself to reach new levels and reach new goals. Which brings us to these New York Football Giants. I feel like at some point in the show, maybe we should talk about them.
Sure.
Coming off a tough loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on cue. Right after the turducken, the 6-legged turkey, whatever we need to do. You know what? Listen, this is tough times. Tough sledding right now. I think when you looked back at the schedule and you were like, okay, wow, you know what, this is going to be the time of the year that really determines, do they make the playoffs or not? Like, going back to before the season started,
right.
0-0. It's like, okay, November was going to be a huge month. You got the Bucs at home, got a little bit of a home game stretch, and you've got the short week, Thanksgiving in Dallas. That's always a big matchup, always a big battle. And, I think you're looking at that saying, man, if you could find a way to string together a little hot streak, win 2 or 3 games in a row, that could be a big push for you to try to make the playoffs and try to have a really productive season. So things have gone a little sideways since then.
Yeah.
But I think regardless of your record, when you're playing on Thanksgiving Day, you throw all that stuff out the window. It doesn't matter if you're a playoff bound, if you have 0 wins, if you have 5 wins, if you have 10 wins. This game is special. You realize this is not just, hey, on prime time. You're playing, Sunday Night Football, Monday night. Like, this is Thanksgiving. You are the holiday 4:30 game. Everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Like, you better show up. You better go out there and you better ball out. Both teams with their backup quarterbacks, so it's not ideal situations. But I know it's something that players really look forward to. You look forward to playing in this game. You look forward to that opportunity.
You want to put your best self on the field when everyone's watching. And, you know, when the Giants made the move to Tommy DeVito at quarterback, one of the things that Brian Dable said is he did it because he wanted to provide a spark to this team. That didn't happen as soon as they would have hoped. Even Tommy DeVito after the game talked about how, you know, that first half, it took him a while to kind of figure out, get a sense of what they were doing. Second half, we saw it kind of come to life, and you know, they had that touchdown in the fourth quarter. They were driving down the field a couple of times. But the other element to consider as well, you know, you hear Malik Neighbors talking about his frustrations about, well, you know, he didn't get the ball in the first half. They only had 18 offensive plays in the first half. They had 45 total yards in the first half. The defense wasn't able to get off the field in the first half. So that also plays a role in the offense not being able to get that spark because they're not on the field long enough to kind of get into a rhythm, to get into the playbook, to get Neighbors the ball, to get things moving around in the way that they would have liked to until the second half. And so as much as you look at the offense and think, wow, they weren't able to put points on the board, they weren't able to score, the defense in that first half, you know, that first drive by Tampa ate up a lot of clock getting down the field.
Yeah, we talked last week right here about Tommy DeVito. What's he going to do to the offense? Can we score points? That was the whole emphasis. I want to create a spark for the offense, and we need points. Right out of the gate, it was clear that Todd Bowles was not going to let Tommy DeVito get in any rhythm. He was not going to let him get comfortable. The first third down, they bring a blitz, and it's a sack. And I think that was the one thing that jumped out at me most watching the game was that it did not look like Tommy DeVito and this offense understood who was the hot receiver, the blitz that was coming, who's the unblocked defender, who am I throwing this ball off of? If I can't protect myself, if I can't move my running back over and block this blitzer off the edge, then I've got to get the ball out. And that was one of the things that right out of the gate showed up, and it was like, okay, he's not seeing the defense very well.
Right.
Bowles saw it, Bowles knows it. And listen, you know, this is not a knock on Tommy DeVito. He is not the first quarterback to fall victim to Todd Bowles and his defensive strategies and his blitz schemes. He shows a lot of different looks, a lot of odd fronts, which is center covered, both tackles covered, and you've kind of got like a joker guy that's walking around that could be a defensive lineman, also could be a linebacker, and he tries to bait you into thinking he's rushing, and he bails out, and they bring two guys off the edge. So by design, they're getting a free rusher on you, and that was the whole thing going into it. Look, we've got this young quarterback. It's his second year in the league. Yeah. Let's harass him. Let's not let him get comfortable. Don't let him get in a rhythm. And we talked going into the last week about the amount of sacks that Tommy DeVito has taken in his rookie year. It was 37 sacks. He got sacked 9 times in the win against Washington last year, his first win. That was one of the things that showed up, and it was, all right, am I not seeing the defense, and can I get the ball out quicker? Mm-hmm. Those were the two things that just never really came to fruition. And look, I think the game looked like it was a little fast for Tommy. I think it's something that he can get better at. But I also think offensively, you've got to do some things to help that out. Like when you see that and going into it, look, like let's keep tight ends in. Let's max protect for the first couple of plays. Let's give him some confidence that he's going to have time to deliver this ball.
Especially when your left tackle Jermaine Illuminor goes out of the game early on. And
yeah, Illuminor hurts his leg on the fourth play of the game, which I think was a mental error on his part. Anyways, looked like he blocked the wrong guy. Ends up taking a shot to the quad, and then he's out. So now Hubbard's in there at left tackle. So essentially your third left tackle on the season. You know, I think there's some things that you'd like to do better. But going back to your point about Neighbors, there were times where he was open, and there were times where there were plays designed to throw the ball to Neighbors, and DeVito couldn't get the ball out. He was getting hit. He was getting sacked. Or he didn't see it because he was avoiding the rush. So it's not, you know, all doomsday. We didn't get Neighbors involved. It was, look, you call a play and you got a guy open, you can't get him the ball. The same kind of stuff happened to Daniel Jones as well. That's when you talk about, look, are we functioning as an offense properly? And clearly they weren't.
Right. And these are things that need to be changed. I mean, you hear the players calling each other out in the post-game media availabilities and holding each other accountable, which is, I think, what you want, right? You want to have your teammates coming to you and say, hey, I expect better from us as a group, as a unit. And, you know, we heard the word soft bantered about in the post-game media availabilities. And then Monday, some of the players spoke to the media, and Micah McFadden saying, you know, that's embarrassing to be called soft as a player. That's not what you want. That's not what you want to hear. And you want to go out there and prove, no, I'm not soft. Yes, we played very poorly. We did not play up to standards, but we don't want to be known as soft. And I think the best thing coming off a game like that and a performance like that for this Giants team is that it's a short week and you get right back on the field and show. If you want to show that you're made of other stuff, then you got a quick turnaround to do that.
Yeah, prove them wrong. And yeah, I mean, that's the silver lining is, look, we don't have to wait 7 days. We had 4 days to really come back and show people that's not who we are. This was the first time that I felt like the Giants just looked like they were overmatched.
Right.
Like this was the first time all season where it was like, you know what, like we don't look like we're even on the same level as the other team. And I think there's a couple of different factors for all of that. I think offensively, when you see, how much they struggled, and it was obviously going to be a long day with how the Bucs defense was getting home and how they were harassing DeVito and how they were, it was going to be a struggle. I think the defense felt that, and I think that you can almost feel that they felt like this was such a one-sided game, and the offense wasn't really going to be able to contribute like they had been in the past. So you almost kind of felt like there was a little bit of that. But I think that's where you've got to step up as a pro, and you got to be better. This team, I think, will also learn from how do you handle a loss like that.
Right.
And to your point, it's your words are very important. Like how you say things, how you deliver them, especially now, because now, like as soon as you say it, it is disseminated throughout all social media. It is not just people picking up the newspaper the next day and reading your quote. Like they're literally reading it 5 minutes after you said it. And I think you have to just, it's a learning opportunity for all the players. When you have a bad game, like, look, you blame yourself. Look, I need to play better. You focus on you. I need to play better, and we need to play better. And then that's it. That's all you have to do. In public, you support.
Right.
In private, that's when you are critical. That's when you challenge your teammates. I don't think challenging your teammates through the media is ever a good answer. And I think that goes for the coaches too. Look, you support your players in public. You are critical of them in private. You correct them in private. And I think that's always the best recipe for a team to have success when things aren't going well. How do you turn it around? Well, look, we're all together. And I think that's one of the things that some of these young players will learn.
Yeah. It's also important to learn, too, like you said, the words that you use are important. And sometimes the way you say something, it can construe a different way. But you have to remember that not everyone is hearing it. If you're speaking into media availability, not everyone's hearing it. Some people are reading it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how often have you sent a text message and you write it one way and the person receives it another? It's like that old Key and Peele sketch where they're like, what do you mean? Let's go? And
what do you mean,
like,
nice shirt?
Yeah, exactly, right? And sometimes, and you look at Neighbors when he was talking post game and he said, well, why, somebody asked him, well, why do you think you didn't get the ball? And he said, you'll have to ask Dable that. Deferring to the head coach, which is what you'd want a young player to do. When it's written, when people are like, well, you're going to ask Dable, you can read it in a different tone. And these are the things that are going to start to percolate and start to happen with a 2-9 team that people are going to point to and say, oh, I'm going to pull this and say, that's something I can point to. See, he's unhappy. No, he's deferring because he's like, this isn't my area to answer this question. You should ask the coach.
I also don't have an issue with guys being unhappy. Like, yeah, he sounds unhappy. No crap.
You don't want him to be happy losing.
No, you know what, Sherlock? Like, I almost dropped a bomb there. Like, duh. Yeah, they're unhappy. They just got blown out at home. You think that they're going to sit up there and be like, hey, man, we're going to be all right. Everything. Yeah. No, like, you know what? They're human too. So I'm okay with there being some emotion with that. Like, hey, man, this sucks. This is BS.
Yeah.
Like, we got to figure this stuff out. And it starts with me. Boom. Done. Yeah. I'm unhappy. We're not happy. We're pissed off. Like, I think Giants fans appreciate that. And I think all fans would appreciate, look, like, let us know that, there's some emotion. Like, so at least we know you care. If you go up there and you're robotic, then it's like, all right, listen, like, what are you doing? Like, that's just, you're just kind of turning on the vanilla ice cream. So I think you've got to find a way to have a little balance with some of that. But I think anytime you hear a teammate saying derogatory things about you or your team or your play, I think you take it to heart. And I think you go out there and, all right, look, you're never going to say that again. Like, we may lose another game,
right? But
it's not going to be because of effort. It's not going to be because of that. And you're never going to be able to say that about us again.
Right, exactly. You want to make that a point of emphasis. Giants fans, make sure you go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews with Giants players, coaches, and front office staff, past and present. Plus, hear from the best analysts covering Big Blue and the NFL. Just search for Giants Huddle and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or go to giants.com/podcasts. And don't forget, if you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review for all of our Giants podcasts. Let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. Let's head to the phone lines. We've got Roy in Charleston, who's been holding quite a bit here. Roy, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Shaun and Madelyn. How's it going?
Good, Madelyn. Hey, Shaun.
What's up, Roy?
Hey, guys. So I got two things. Number one, I think, the team was very deflated the way Daniel was handled. I think, again, I'm just an outsider. I've never played ball, but just kind of looking at Sunday's game, I think that they were deflated at the fact that, I think had they had a little bit more time to process the fact that their captain was being benched and then their captain asked to be let go. I think that was a hit to the team, and I think that was a big, huge distraction in the way these guys played. What do you think of that? That's my first point.
Yeah, Roy, I think it's a great point. And it's something that I've actually talked about with a number of people over the last couple of days. That's a tough blow. And, look, was it an absolutely the reason, the factor? I don't know. Was it a contributing factor? Probably. It's tough, when all of a sudden, your starting quarterback gets benched and you're like, all right, you know what? Like, they're making a change, okay? And number one, you immediately feel bad. Like, man, we let him down too. We let him down. We let our coaches down. Our quarterback's getting benched. I've always said quarterbacks get all the fame and they get all the blame. Mm-hmm. So, all right, Daniel Jones is taking all the heat. He gets benched. Okay. Then what transpired was, okay, Daniel Jones comes in and says, all right, I understand what's going on. I understand that there's change. What can I do to help the team? I'll run scout team. I want to be there to help Tommy DeVito out. No, you can't do any of that. You're not allowed to practice. You can't do anything. And it's like, okay, why am I here? What's going on? Like, this is awkward now. I can't do stuff. So that whole thing really escalated quickly. And I think on Friday, to see all of a sudden now, not only is he not playing, now he's no longer even here. He's been released. I definitely think that's tough. It's tough for a team to handle. And now all of a sudden you're looking and saying, what are we doing? Are we giving up on the season? Like, what is the message that's being sent to us? So I think at that point in time, the relationship with the head coach and the team is of utmost importance. And you know what? I don't know. If I'm the general manager, maybe I address the team as well. Maybe, I want to let them know, like, what happened and here's how it went by and this sucks, but it's part of the business side of the game. We still have jobs to do and we have to go out and do it. So I don't know if that was handled that way. I would like to think that it was, but I think that's the challenge. And that's one of the hardest things as a coach is to come in and say, look, I understand these things have all happened around us. We have to focus on what we need to do. And our job is to go out and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. Like, the rest of the world can be going to hell in a handbag. We've got to go. You even go back to like COVID years, right? I mean, there was nobody even in the stands. And it's like, look, we have people that you cannot even go into a store. You can't go in another building. Like, everything is outside. We've got to focus. We've got to find a way to go do our job. So I think it's a challenge. It's easier said than done, but it's something that has to be done. Was that a contributing factor? Probably. And I don't think you're stretching any bit of the imagination in that, Roy.
Yeah, because Roy, as you mentioned too, he's a captain in that locker room. He's a guy that is a leader in that locker room. He's a big part of the team, and removing him from the equation.
And a friend.
Yeah.
That's always hard. It's hard. We've got a lot of kids playing this game, and you've got to grow up really quick. You've got a lot of these kids come in and look. They may be professional football players, but they're still amateur humans. Like, they're still learning how to be professional humans.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. And, the second part, my second point I wanted to, and this is just me thinking out of the box. 2 years ago, Mike Kafka was our OC. Brian Daboll was our head coach. The two were separated. And we went to a playoff game with Brian Daboll coaching and Kafka calling the plays. And the last 2 years, Daboll has been doing both jobs. I know Kafka's doing some, but I think the way I read it, the way I understand it, is that Daboll is mainly calling the plays. And I think, just my point of view, is that I think Daboll's a great coach. I think he's a great OC. I just don't know if he can do both. And I look at other coaches throughout the NFL. You know, a lot of them, and I can't think of the Kansas City coach's name.
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid, yeah.
Thank you. Andy Reid is a genius, but he's not calling plays, is he? Does he call plays?
He was.
I think now he is. Eric Bieniemy kind of took over for a while there as the play caller. I mean, I think Andy really is, you know, he structured everything, and he probably helped out with the game plan and figuring stuff out. But, yeah, I mean, listen, your point is not lost on anybody. I think that it's a great point to bring up, especially like when I look at it, Andy Reid can handle that. He's been coaching since, you know, for 40-some years. You know, I don't know how many years he's been in the league, but like when you're a first-time head coach, it is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And when Brian Daboll was hired, I remember the first question was, are you going to call plays? And it was like, no, I want to be the head coach. I want to be able to talk to the defense, and I want to be able to do both. You kind of look around the league at first-time head coaches that struggle with calling plays. You know, look, Pat Shurmur did it here, right? He kind of struggled. McAdoo struggled here. You look around the league, and, I mean, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of first-time head coaches that do struggle with the play-calling aspect of it and doing both. So, you know, look, I think that was something that Daboll took over this year, hoping that it would provide a spark and give Daniel Jones the best opportunity to put his best foot forward. And, look, that hasn't worked out. I don't put all the blame on Daboll. Like, look, if you're drawing and calling up a great play and it's not executed really well, like, all right, so what do you do? Like, you can't replace all 11 players. Like, there's been probably a little bit of both. You know, there's probably been some missteps on his part.
Right.
And then there's been some dysfunction offensively. And that's the tough part about the business side of this game is, you know, like when things just aren't working, it's a production business. There is going to be change. There always is. That's the one thing you can count on in the NFL. I can't tell you who's going to win on any given Sunday. I can't tell you what's going to happen. But I can tell you this. If you lose, there will be change.
Because nothing changes if nothing changes, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to have very similar results. And sometimes you got to change things just for the sake of changing them to see, okay, maybe this is going to work, maybe that's going to work. And it's frustrating, you know. You see the way that this team's out there on the practice field. You see the way they are working and are preparing. And I can understand the frustration of it not translating to game day on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and, you know, I think just for one, just to add this for Brian Daboll, look, this is not about his ability as a coach.
No.
I mean,
He's been coaching football professionally for 20 plus years in the National Football League.
I think he has 5 national championship rings. He's got a national championship ring from his time down in Alabama. He's got 4 Super Bowl rings, if I'm not mistaken. And he was the offensive coordinator when they won the national championship. He was the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. He was the offensive coordinator in New England at some point, I believe. So he understands concepts. He understands how to layer plays and do that. The problem is that it's really hard to layer plays when the first play sucks, when the first play doesn't work. Like play number 2 and play number 3, they were playing off of play number 1. When play number 1 doesn't work, well, 2 and 3 are out the window. So that's tough. It's tough for any offensive coordinator. And, you know, I think it's not necessarily about ability. It's just about the execution.
Right. Absolutely. And execution is one of those things that, you know, you talk about, whether it's tackling, whether it's play, you know, offensively and all that kind of stuff. You know, you watch the game on Sunday and, you know, tackling continues to be a struggle for this Giants team. That's not something like on the practice field, you know, you bring out the dummies, you bring out whatever. How do you elevate that in a game? Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to replicate that. You know, and nobody, like if you're a coach and you come in on a Wednesday and say, hey guys, we're going to go live tackling on a Wednesday, like people are going to be like, are you crazy? Yeah, the NFLPA is going to be getting a call. In week 12, like we're all of a sudden now we're going to, like, so how do you do that as a coach? To your point, I think you try to create, like simulate the art of tackling. I think a lot of it too is, you know, look, it's effort. You know, everybody's got to be swarming to the ball. Yeah. You know, you can't be like, oh, he's going to make the tackle. Or, you know, everybody's got to make sure that they're pouring 100% of their effort in on every single play. That's the only way you win games. But it is, you know, it's angles and it's just understanding like, hey, look, here's where I need to be, and playing together as a defense. Everybody has their gaps. Everybody has their run fits. And if you have a safety that comes in and he's not in the right spot, now there's a huge hole. boom, it's a big play.
Yeah.
I think, when you're down 23-0 at halftime,
Yeah.
when you're down early on, you tend to see a lot more missed tackles. It's weird how that thing kind of works around the NFL, but you look around at any game, all of a sudden, team's up a couple scores, offense is struggling. Now all of a sudden, guys are breaking through arm tackles. Guys aren't, they're not selling out as much on the tackle. So, I think that I'm not saying that was the case with the Giants, but it is something that I've seen before.
Yeah. Well, and they need your support. So Giants fans, take your fandom to the next level with season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships now available for the 2024 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. Let's head back to the phone lines. A familiar face, a familiar voice calling in to Big Blue Kickoff Live. Charlie in Maine. You're on BBK with Shaun and Madelyn.
Hey, Madelyn and Shaun. How are you all?
Doing well, Charlie. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Happy
you, Charlie.
Thanksgiving.
We're wishing you a wicked, awesome Thanksgiving as well.
Oh, lobster and lasagna. How's that?
Yum.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only kind of L's I like.
Hey, look, guys. I haven't called in a while. Well, I speak to John a lot, but I haven't talked to you two in a while. For one thing, Dable was never a head coach. That makes a difference.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I gave us 4 wins this year anyway. I thought everybody overvalued this roster, and I am so glad that Mr. Jones is gone. I've been calling for it for 5 years. He wasn't the guy. He is a backup in this league, I believe, and that's what he'll end up being. The way they went about it was a little strange, but all I got to say is, like, they definitely have been simulating not tackling because the simulation's been really good. This defense is god-awful in stopping the run. I mean, Dallas is not a very good run team, so if they run through us, that is going to be horrific because these guys can't run the ball very well at all, right? So, DeVito, I mean, I give him a little break. Look, you've got to have some pride, right? You've got to have some pride, and this is the time to have pride and play for each other, whether you like the coach or not, or you like the schemes, or you don't get in the ball. You got to play for each other right now, Shaun. You know that. And if they can't get it together for this game, there's going to be, like I think you were talking about, Shaun, there's going to be some major changes going on the coaching staff, on this team. So hopefully they can get it together, at least be competitive. And if they can do that, then they're showing some pride and some. If not, they have quit, and they're.
Did we lose
So,
you?
you guys hear
there
me?
you go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. So that's the way I look at it. I didn't expect much this year anyway. I didn't think the team was very good. I don't think our roster was that great. We don't have an O-line. It's not fixed. I know, Shaun, maybe you think it's been fixed. I don't, because we had no depth. Thomas was always injured. He's been injured, so it was just a matter of time before he went down. And now we got 2 pretty bad tackles coming into this game. So, I don't think Dallas is all that great. They barely beat Washington, and they were fortunate that they did. So they're not a great team, but they are at home. They haven't won a home game. It's Thanksgiving, so I expect them to have high energy, and we better have some high energy and start off quick, or we're going to end up losing out the next 6 games after this. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you, and but I am glad that Jones is gone. We need a quarterback, and we just got to find one in the draft and just start this thing all over again.
Charlie in Maine, thanks as always for the call. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. A lot to unpack here. Look, I think you're not alone in the we need a quarterback to turn this thing around. I will also disagree, and I will say this is not a quarterback fix away.
Right.
Like, I don't look at this team and say, wow, they're a quarterback away from being a dynasty and being ready to rock and being a playoff team. There is a lot there's a lot that needs to be fixed, and it's not just a gorgeous house that needs a new roof. Like there's a lot you got to put new windows in.
Far from turnkey.
Yeah, there is a lot to do. I think the offensive line this year has already played heads above the last year. Mm-hmm. Like they are playing so much better, and it's even without Andrew Thomas, which second year in a row now you lose your best offensive lineman. That's not ideal. So losing Andrew Thomas, definitely there's a trickle-down effect. Obviously now Illuminor's playing left tackle. They tried Hubbard. They tried Azudu. Hubbard's back in there left tackle now because Illuminor's hurt. So it never bodes well for an offense. But I think when you look at what the Giants have had to do, and, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are both a part of this, it's, okay, if we are going to build this the right way, if we're going to build this house the right way and rebuild it and reshape it, we have to find a way to get the right money and the right amount of assets and put them where it needs to be most and where we're going to get the longest term effects from it. So, yeah, you know what? Like, it would have been nice to have kept Saquon. It would have been nice to have Daniel Jones here. But the amount of money that would have been allocated for those two players, that's like spending all your money on the windows, and now you don't have enough money left over to put the roof back on. So
right, and the windows aren't doing much good if there's no roof.
Yeah, there's only so much.
I mean, that's the thing.
So much that you can spend money on every single year.
Because people point to Saquon and what he's doing in Philly this year, and it is incredible. I am so happy for him. This is a really talented football player and a great young man, and I'm like thrilled to watch him play at this level. It is unfortunate that he's doing it for the Eagles and not for the Giants. But again, if he was still in New York, that's not the type of season he's having because that's not the structure around him. And that's not the environment in which he's playing in New York versus in Philly. And so I think people got to stop comparing apples to apples, saying, oh, well, look at him running for 1,300 yards and counting this season. He could be doing that in New Jersey. No, he wouldn't be because, the line isn't protecting in the same way. The threat, the defenses are, not zeroing in on the other threats in the same way. It's just a very different scenario.
No, I think it's a great point. And not to turn this into a Saquon Barkley discussion here on BBK, but it is not an apples-to-apples comparison.
Right.
Saquon has been here, and you know what? Part of the reason why he left and went to Philly is because they are a better team.
Yeah.
And Saquon, I think, knew that.
They're a house that just needed new windows.
Right. I think he's like, look, I'm going to get to go play behind one of the best O-lines in the league. I'm going to have a much more productive season. And you know what? Like, winning is what this game is all about. Life is more fun when you win. The season is such a grind. When you're winning, it's fun. Like, Saquon is having fun. We can't celebrate that because he's wearing green. Like, if he had been playing for the Raiders or the Chiefs or, an AFC team that we don't really have that kind of animosity towards, I think Giants fans could actually take pause and say, you know what? We're happy for him that he's having that production. But don't think for 1 second he would be having that same production here with the Giants. And I think that's one of the reasons why what went down. And I think, you can't sit here and say, oh my gosh, do I think we would have been a better team this year with Saquon? Yeah, I do. But that wasn't going to equate to 10 wins for us because we've been doing that before. And I think, even with Daniel Jones, I will say I kind of cringe when Charlie was saying, I'm glad Daniel Jones is gone. Like, nobody's glad that DJ's gone. Like,
no.
He was a great guy. He was a great teammate. He was a great Giant. He was classy from the moment he stepped on campus here to the moment that he left. And he did all of that with unbelievable New York Giant pride and class. I'm fairly certain that the entire Giants fan base, when he, in his very first start, down in Tampa Bay of all places, rushed for a winning touchdown at the end of the game, and the Giants beat the Bucs, they were all in on like, oh my gosh, how about this? We go from Eli to Daniel Jones. This is great. So there was a point in time where Daniel Jones was, the heir to the throne, so to speak, at quarterback, and he looked great. And there were times where he looked really, really good, and you could see, man, just imagine how good he's going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. That progression just did not occur, whether it was due to injury, whether it was due to the fact that this is his third head coach, his fourth offensive coordinator in 6 years.
Yeah.
Ask Baker Mayfield how tough that is.
Yeah.
I will say this. I disagree with anybody that said that Dan Jones is not a starting quarterback in this league. They said the same thing about Sam Darnold, who's in first place in his division. They said the same thing about Baker Mayfield. He's on, his fifth team now? So just because it doesn't work in one place for one team doesn't necessarily mean that you are not capable of being a starter in this league. So
Absolutely.
I think this, change of scenario can change a lot of different things.
Sometimes you just need a fresh start and a new environment. And, you look at the draft, right? Every time certain players succeed, certain players don't. And it's a combination of talent, situation, environment, and circumstance that goes into it. And sometimes, players early in their career, they don't find success with the team that they started with, but they find it later on in their career. You look at Baker Mayfield, you look at Sam Darnold, you look at players who, didn't have success early on and do later on. I want to update everyone because head coach Brian Daboll is talking to the media now and updating practice.
What do you say?
The big news, Tommy DeVito has a sore forearm on his throwing arm. And Daboll says that he threw this morning, but is not 100% certain that he will play on Thursday against the Cowboys. So Drew Lock is going to be getting some reps today. He's going to be ready if needed. Again, it's not a full practice today because it's a short week. So they're kind of doing walkthrough practice kind of hybrid. But yeah, DeVito's throwing arm. DeVito was not on the injury report Monday, but his forearm is sore. He's limited today and he'll test it out at practice. So we'll see how that evolves as the week goes on.
Okay, that's not ideal.
Not ideal. Evan
Tommy
Neal,
DeVito is not a turducken. He does not have 6 legs and arms.
No.
So the fact that it's a bruise, I think, is good. That's something that could be a pain tolerance, could be a swelling thing. But I think when you say forearm, I think about it's the grip. Can I hold the ball?
Right.
If you've got a bruised forearm, and anybody that's had a bad bruise, a bad contusion, it could change kind of those flexor muscles in your forearm, and your grip can be, a little bit disabled, and that would be the biggest concern for a quarterback if you can't throw onto the ball. Now, I think this is me just kind of looking through the game. That first sack, I think that's when that happened because he got kind of surprised. He saw the blitzer come off the edge and he was trying to avoid him, and he stepped right up into a defensive lineman, and in trying to protect the ball, he took a shot. And I think it knocked the wind out of him there too. But it looked like he almost took a helmet right on the arm.
Well, even late in the game, too, when Drew Lock came in for that one play, he had to go to the sideline for a moment, too.
Tommy's a tough kid. I know this. He's Jersey tough. I know he'll do everything he can, but it's tough because it's a short week. If this had been a normal week, today's Tuesday, it's a non-issue. Wednesday, even if he doesn't practice, all right, fine, you go out and throw on Thursday. But the fact that it's a short week and they're playing on Thanksgiving, they really don't even practice. It's really walkthroughs.
Yeah.
And tomorrow they're flying down to Dallas. So it is a quick turnaround, and that kind of makes it tough.
Yeah, it does. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as the week evolves. But again, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock going to be splitting reps, both being ready for the game on Thursday. And, again, another update from Daboll's press conference. If it was a full practice today, no Illuminor, no Ojulari. That's a tough one, too, because Illuminor was a DNP on the practice report yesterday as well. He left the game, as you remember, early on Sunday. So without Jermaine Illuminor, if it's Hubbard at left tackle.
Yeah. Well, and listen, Micah Parsons has been a problem for us.
It's been a problem for a lot.
Ideal. It's not ideal to go into it with not your best players, but it's also if you're an injured player, if you're battling something, that makes it even tougher.
Right.
If you're going against a guy like that, limited. Obviously there's no DeMarcus Lawrence down there, but Micah Parsons, I know the defense is not performing at the same level that we saw last year, but they harassed. Tommy DeVito's first start in his NFL career was at Dallas last year. A couple weeks ago, a year ago. So this is not foreign to him. I will say, I remember in his first start, he took some lumps down there in Dallas, but he got up. He kept fighting. He's a tough kid. He's gonna fight. He's gonna give it his all. But if you can't find a way to slow down Micah Parsons, it could be a long day.
It could be a very long day indeed. Giants fans, the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and on the Giants mobile app. Make sure to download, tune in, subscribe today. 201-939-4513. Let's head back to the phone lines. We've got Jonathan in Westchester, who's been holding for a bit. Jonathan, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Shaun and Madelyn.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jonathan?
Good. Yeah, I've called in a bunch in the past, but I think this is my first time speaking with you both, so pleasure to speak with you.
Nice to speak with you as well.
Thanks. I wanted to get your thoughts today on two players, and if you have a second, I can throw a few quick stats at you.
Okay.
So the first one is Daniel Bellinger. So in 2022, he had 30 receptions for 268 yards, and that was despite missing some time, I think 4 games in the middle of the season with that eye injury. In 2023, he had 25 receptions for 255 yards. This year, Bellinger only has 3 receptions for 31 yards. And I was looking it up. He actually hasn't been targeted in over a month, since October 20th. And then the second guy is Jalen Hyatt. So similar, last year Hyatt had 23 receptions for 373 yards, and so far this year only 5 receptions for 45 yards. And 4 of Hyatt's 5 receptions actually came against Carolina when Slayton was out. So real steep drop for each of these guys in both targets and receptions, which it's a bit perplexing. I mean, especially considering that the expectations for each of them was so high and what they showed early on. So, I guess the question is it as simple as, Theo Johnson taking snaps from Bellinger and Neighbors maybe taking a spot in the depth chart? What are your thoughts on that? And is it possible to get Bellinger and Hyatt more involved? Maybe have them on the field getting more reps in spite of Theo Johnson and Neighbors being out there.
Yeah, great question.
Great question.
Look, I think when you look at the entire offense, the production is down for everybody. Pretty much except for Neighbors, who's on pace to set a rookie record for receptions in the NFL in your first year in the league. I mean, look, Bellinger's got 3 catches for 31 yards. A lot of that is due to Theo Johnson. He has 24 catches for 277 yards. But it's also, directly correlated to the dysfunction that this offense has dealt with this year. They have not been great. They have not been able to stay on the field on third down. This is, the offense is not performing at a high level. I'm sure if things were better and we were scoring points and the offense was functioning as it should, there would be a heck of a lot more targets and opportunities for both Bellinger and for Hyatt. I think the other guys have probably leapfrogged them. Wan'Dale Robinson and Slayton have leapfrogged Hyatt, and so has Neighbors in terms of snaps, targets. But when things are not cohesive offensively, it's really hard to just say, hey, we're going to spread the ball and get everybody involved. So I think that's really the product. His lack of production is the product of the dysfunction.
When you look at Hyatt, too, the point of Hyatt's such a downfield guy, right? His specialty is just the go route, running deep. And the problem is the offense as a whole hasn't been set up to optimize that play. And, even when they've taken the deep shots at times, the timing's been a little bit off sometimes. They haven't quite found that rhythm with that deep shot. Well,
even you look at like the first play of the game against Carolina in Munich, they went deep to Hyatt. They took a deep shot. It was PI.
Yeah.
So, there's some hidden stats in there too. Like, hey, if there wasn't pass interference, maybe he catches that ball and now maybe there's some more production. That's not, it doesn't go with the Bellinger conversation you were having. But yeah, I mean, there's plays like that happen. And then there's plays like we talked about before where, hey, we're trying to get Hyatt the ball. We're trying to get a big play down the field, and all hell breaks loose up front.
Yeah. And, and Bellinger, too, to the caller's point, early on in their career, like Bellinger and DJ had a really good chemistry and a really good, it was kind of like a reliability on him as a target. But then as the offensive sets change and as the offensive looks change a little bit, too, I mean, productivity goes up and down with opportunity.
I think, the other thing is, like, look, we have yet to throw for 300 yards in a single game.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we talking about here? Like,
Right.
all right, there's a lot of guys that don't have a lot of catches and need to be more involved and be more productive. I think the most yards I'm looking at right now, we threw for 281 yards against Dallas in week 4.
Yeah.
And that was the most productive passing game of the
Also
year.
a Thursday.
We've got 8 touchdowns on the whole season. So, I mean, the production offensively is pedestrian compared to what some of these other offenses are doing around the league.
Yeah, and that's definitely not what you want to see. I mean, we can look at it's just... Yeah.
There's no way to sugarcoat
Pearson's over
this.
there laughing like...
Nice try.
Yeah,
we're trying really hard.
We're doing our best over here. We all are. Just not great, Bob.
Like, when you look at... All right, right now, Daniel Jones, and granted, he didn't play in this last game, but
sure.
We've thrown for 2,000 yards as an offense. All right, Lamar Jackson has thrown for 3,000 yards. Like, we're like not even in the top 20 in terms of passing yards in the league right now, and that's, I mean, that's a big part of the game right now. When you look, it's a passing league. If you can't throw the football, like you're already behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Yeah, that's really
especially
what that
when
all
you've
comes down to.
invested some significant first-round draft capital in some talented wide receivers. You want to get them the ball, not just Neighbors, but you got Hyatt. You've got a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who's again a third-round guy, but a great player. You've got a receiving core, but if you can't get the ball out, if you can't get the ball to them, it's challenging. And yes, we've got the run game getting going, and that's an important way to start. I mean, look at what's working in Detroit. They've got the kind of two-headed monster with Gibbs and Montgomery, and that works for them. Can the Giants emulate that with Tracy and Singletary and have the double attack in the rushing game? And then you've got a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's an all-world receiver who doesn't need to be the key in that.
Yeah, and that offense is, look, that 1 week they can run the hell out of the ball, and then the next week you want to stop the run. All right, fine, we're going to eat you up with golf.
Exactly.
That's when you're functioning on all cylinders.
Right. And so trying to get the cylinders functioning at this point in the year. And again, it's going to be continuing monitoring who's going to be in at quarterback this week. Tommy DeVito, limited. Drew Lock will be getting some looks. I know we've got the phone ringing over here too, but Pearson taking some calls for us as we continue to evolve and to... all right, there we go. I know. See, listen, Wilson, I get it. Sometimes you call in and you want to talk to us, but sometimes
he talks to me for a while.
To Pearson, because welcome to the show, 201-939-4513. Wilson in Roxbury, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Shaun and Madelyn. How's it going, Wilson?
Hey, Madelyn, again, looking beautiful like always. Hey, Shaun, man, you are, John, I have a lot of respect for you, Shaun, and you're a great Giant. But Shaun, don't answer this. But a buddy of mine asked me, "How did we get here?" And I said, "I don't know." But this regime, I know you can't answer, but I'm gonna say my piece. This regime has made the Joe Judge era look like like Bill Purcell. And all I'm gonna say is this: don't answer either, but I'm gonna say, if they get embarrassed on national television on Thursday, and we see that effort we saw on Sunday, I don't know who. A lot of people won't be allowed back in the building on Monday. That you can take to the bank. And I'm gonna say one thing. I don't know, nothing personal. Everything is in the context of football. You know what I mean? Nothing personal. When Giants fans like myself, we go crazy, it's because we wanna have some fun on Sunday. Just to let us on steam. It's not life and death. It's not like it's gonna change our life, because it's not. We just want to be happy on Sunday. You know what I mean? It's nothing personal against anybody. I'm sure all those guys over there, Joe Shane, Brian Day, they're great guys. Nothing personal. I just want to make that bluntly clear that nothing is personal. But if I have to hear one more time that Brian Day was a great head coach, I'm going to go to the Empire State Building and I'm going to jump off. Because
don't do that, Wilson.
I know he won. I know he won Coach of the Year, man. But come on. it's been going it's been going south too, and this year it's unbelievable. It's you can't tell me it's a well-coached team and whatever it is. All I'm saying is this, Shaun, and I'm gonna call next week. Hopefully it's not, because I want people to actually succeed in life. I don't want people to. But if they get embarrassed on Thursday, remember Wilson from Roxbury called on Tuesday. Some people won't be allowed in the building on Monday. If they get embarrassed and John Mara gets embarrassed on national television after last Sunday, Shaun, you know this organization. You've been with this organization for many years. You won. You know how John Mara is a great man, patient man. He doesn't like getting embarrassed. And thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks so much for calling, Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson, nobody likes getting embarrassed. I'm going to channel my inner Tom Hanks right here from Castaway. Wilson, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Wilson. Listen, you're right, though, 100%. It's not life and death. Stay away from the Empire State Building.
Please.
We don't need any of that. Look, no doubt about it. If we have this same type of performance on Thanksgiving Day against Dallas, like, the sky's going to be falling around here. And I get it. I think I'll go back to this. Unfortunately, we have been here before. Like, this is a rerun. I agree with you. It does feel like the sky was falling like it was 3 years ago when that season went, completely sideways on us. And I'll never forget that loss here at MetLife, and we were there, and not the one there were people throwing Diet Pepsis at us. Or
that was,
Pepsis or Coke. Yeah, I think it was Pepsi.
Medium Pepsis, yes. That was...
It was the game, I think it might have been against Miami. Maybe not Miami, but it was where we did the quarterback sneak and punt, and it was like, wow. Like
with Jake Fromm, the quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9.
Daniel Jones was hurt that year. It was the neck injury, so he was out. So we were playing with backup quarterbacks, and it felt like, man, all right, this is rock bottom. Like, this is as bad as it's ever been. It's never going to get worse. And yet here we are. And it feels very similar. Exactly.
Yeah.
It does feel similar to that. I will say this, though. There was a lot of dysfunction in that coaching staff and between the coaches and the general manager at that time. So if you go back in history and kind of look at that, Joe Judge and Gettleman were really not seeing eye to eye with things. There was not a great relationship with there. This is different. This feels different. Even being around the coaching staff, being around the team, this doesn't feel like that same kind of dysfunction. And Joe Shane and Brian Daboll have a great relationship. Look, they were friends before they came here. Mm-hmm. They understand they came here to do a job. They're not holding up their end of the bargain right now, and they get that. But I also think, like, you have to look at it. You can't make irrational decisions, emotional decisions. You can't make a decision in the heat of the moment. And I think John Mara has actually gone on record before and said, look, I never want to make a decision after a tough loss, because there have been some tough losses in the last few years. And I remember there were even tough losses back when Coach Coughlin was coaching, and it was like, you know what? we're not going to make a decision like that in the heat of the moment and with the emotions high. So, look, I get what you're saying. We hope that we're not in that position. But I also think you have to make a decision, too, based on what do I still believe in the people that I have here. The men and the women that I have working for me. Yes, it's not going well, but is it worth pressing the reset button and the reboot button and going through this whole cycle that we've been on? It's been a 3-year cycle. You know, you go back to McAdoo, to Shermer, to Judge, and then now to Daboll. And now, are we just going to eat, sleep, rave, repeat? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
So at some point, you've got to trust in the fact that, hey, do I have the right people? Even if it doesn't feel like it at the time right now that things are working, is that consistency. We talked last week about the Steelers and their consistency.
Yeah.
They've had 3 coaches in our lifetimes. That kind of consistency is what breeds championships. So I do know that, look, it's tough, and, you know, look, change is inevitable. I don't know that it's always the right answer. You don't want to go from the pan into the fire. But I do think that, look, that's going to be the conversation. I mean, if they lay an egg and if this is not a great performance and it's not, you know, if it's what we saw against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on national television on Thanksgiving Day with the whole world watching, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for everybody.
Yeah, and it's, you know, like you said, there is benefit in riding through the storm together and saying, okay, we are not in a good place now, but let's stick to this plan and stay the course. Because, you know, we've talked to players before who, in their time on this team, have had many different head coaches and coordinators and whatnot. And that if you're changing the dynamic every 2 years, every 3 years, what have you, it's hard for you to build any direction with the team. You know, okay, we're going this way. No, we're going this way. No, we're going this way. No, we're going this way. And you just continually keep pressing the reset button back to one, back to one, back to one. And yes, you can build something different, maybe take a different approach, but then you're starting back at square one with a new situation, and not often does, a new regime come in and suddenly everything is well. No, it's okay. Now we're going to start building this way.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of decisions that have been made over the last couple of years that have led us to here, but that doesn't mean that they were the wrong decision.
No.
Just because the team right now is not winning doesn't mean that there weren't decisions that needed to be made, and they're tough decisions. And you can't go back on them and say, man, you know what, we should have never done that, done this. It's like, look, here's the information at hand. Here's where we're at. We need to do this the right way. It can't be about just trying to hey, so what if we won 8 games this year, 7 games, and don't make the playoffs? What does that do? Does that, all right, so now do you are all those decisions that you made now that we only have 2 wins wrong decisions because we have 7 wins? Like, to your point, if we had 5 wins or 6 wins, and I think it was Wilson that was saying that, or maybe it was Charlie that they thought there was going to be 4 wins this year.
Yeah.
But does that change the decision making from before into, hey, that was the wrong move or that was the right move now because we have 2 or 3 more wins? This team, like we said, there's still a lot that needs to be fixed.
Lot that needs to be fixed, and it starts on Thursday when the Giants head to Dallas, Big D, little A, double LAS, to play the Cowboys. Division game, NFC East game. Everyone watching, the whole world, not just the United States, but the whole world. Yemen, they're tuning in.
Yeah. Well, look, the guy on the other sideline, too, is feeling the same kind of heat. Mike McCarthy and what has transpired with their season. Dak Prescott going on IR with a hamstring, and Cooper Rush, he's banged up too. I think he's listed as questionable or probable right now too. They got away with a big win against Washington because Seibert missed a kick at the end.
Right.
So they very well could have been coming into this game with a loss too. But that's kind of how the league is these days.
Yeah, and it's they're still having their own struggles. The Cowboys have yet to win at home yet this year.
Who would have thought that?
Right? I don't know. Maybe if they had blinds, it would be different.
Who would have thought that? The
window
Giants
shades
and the Cowboys.
Curtains.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Sunglasses.
Can you wear sunglasses in a game?
I think you could wear a tinted visor if you have a medical exception.
Or what if you did rec specs,
like
but
LaDainian
tinted?
Tomlinson wore a tinted visor.
Right.
Jim McMahon did as well. He had an eye injury when he was younger. So, yeah, you can do that. I don't know. I think Eric Dickerson's one of the few guys that I've seen wear goggles.
Rec specs,
and the kicker too, blanket chip.
Yeah, I'd go tinted rec specs. I feel like that's the move with the neck roll and everything.
Bellinger had the tinted face.
That's right. Bellinger had it after he had that
poked in the eye
that orbital fracture. I think the tinted visor is badass.
It really is.
My son's begging me for one. He's like, Daddy, I want a visor. I'm like, dude, you're 11.
What's the War Eagles update before we wrap up the show?
Super Bowl champs.
I can't believe we buried the lead. We are all the way into this hour of Big Blue Kickoff Live before we congratulate Jack O'Hara and the War Eagles, Super Bowl champs.
It's not just my son's league. So the Franklin Lakes War Eagles, there's 3 different age groups. There's the seniors, which is the 7th and 8th grade group, that age group. Then there's the 5th and 6th grade, that's called the juniors, and the Pee-wees. The Franklin Lakes won the Super Bowl at all 3 levels.
Okay.
We are officially hated around North Jersey. It's kind of like when the Patriots were winning all the Super Bowls, everybody just started hating them.
Hate us because you ain't us.
The Patriots. But it was a really special day. Chris Snee, who is the head coach of the seniors team, his son Walker, they won. They were after our game. So it was really cool. It was a fun day to celebrate. Jason McCourty, his son, he's coaching on the Pee-wees, and his son won the Super Bowl as well for his team. So it was kind of cool. He actually gave a shout out on the game, the broadcast, because he called the game Giants Bucks. He was with Tiki Barber in the booth, and they gave a little shout out to the War Eagles. So yeah, definitely a cool season. Went undefeated. I'm also happy to say that the O'Hara household is undefeated in Super Bowls, so that was good. kept the record alive.
Keeping the tradition going.
So, I don't know if any of our players could be future draft picks for the New York Giants, but I think we got a couple prospects for them.
Let's go War Eagles.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. See, we got stuff to be thankful for this week. We got stuff to
100%.
celebrate here on Big Blue Kickoff Live on the bandwagon. All right, well, that's a wrap for our show today. But thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. It's part of the Giants podcast platforms everywhere. Giants.com/podcast. For Shaun O'Hara, I'm Madelyn Burke. Happy Thanksgiving to you all.